Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. For today's video, we have an actual legal topic that we're going to discuss today. It's not about the civilian review board. It's not about memes. This is an actual real world police situation that we're going to talk about. And the topic today is going to be a question rather. Can a police officer extend a traffic stop in order to get a K-9 to search your car? I guess we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the realities of a K-9 search, what it actually is and what it is not as well. The reason we're going to talk about this is because of a video that I put out on the body camera channel sometime last year. I can't quite remember, but this was an instance where officers on bicycles were watching a house that had been reported by the neighborhood, and they had also gained independent intelligence on to make them believe that this house was being used for narcotics activity. For lack of a better term, lack of anything more technical, it was a dope house. The cops were sitting up on a dope house. They watched a car pull up to the dope house. The guy walked into the dope house for a very short period of time, walked back to his car, started to drive away. The police officers decided to follow this vehicle, see if he's going to make a traffic infraction. When he did, they initiated a traffic stop on him. A large portion of this video is the officer staying at his window talking to him. And then at some point in time, they say, hey, we need to get you out of the car. We have a K-9 on scene, and he wants you out of the car for him to be able to do his walk around the vehicle. The guy starts to argue, doesn't want to get out of the car, eventually tries to run from the vehicle. That is when they get a search on the car. They find his gun. They find some drugs. He is arrested and charged. This has been quite controversial on my YouTube channel, which is kind of funny. I had it highlighted, but I think here it is. This is a comment or a variation of the comment that I saw quite frequently. I don't know if you guys can read it from there, but I'll read it to you. It says, "This is a BS stop. They stopped him under the pretense of a traffic violation for failure to come to a complete stop at a stop sign, but then proceeded to extend the duration of the stop to have a K-9 come so that they can search the car. Blatantly unconstitutional, zero probable cause, and abuse of power, even if he was a criminal." I saw this comment or a variation of this comment probably 1,000 times. And there is a lot of stuff wrong with this comment here. First of all, I'm going to kind of go in reverse order. He said zero probable cause. The probable cause that they used to get into his car was the fact that he was stopped for committing a traffic offense. He was detained at that point in time. He decided to try to run from the traffic stop. They tackled him, arrested him, and then they searched his car. They found a gun. That was their probable cause. Now let's take it back another step. He believes that police officers need probable cause to have a K-9 walk around your car. You don't need probable cause to have a K-9 walk around a car. You don't even need reasonable suspicion to have a K-9 walk around a car. A K-9 search it's not really a search. We just kind of call it that because we're idiots and it's easier to understand when you call it a K-9 search. It's actually a sniff. What the dog is doing is he's walking around a car and he alerts if he smells narcotics, explosives, firearms, and things like that. Different dogs are trained differently. We all understand that. What he's smelling is the air outside of the vehicle. It is a non-intrusive event. He's walking around the outside of the vehicle. It's just that his sense of smell is much stronger than ours. If I'm standing at the window of a car and I can smell gunpowder and I can articulate that I can smell gunpowder, I can actually get in that car too. It's a lot easier to articulate that a dog is the one that smelled the substance, right? So you don't need probable cause at all because the dog is not getting into the car. It's a non-intrusive event. The dog's just walking around the outside of the car. That is what the courts have held. So you don't need probable cause for that search. Now let's get to they extended the duration of the stop to have a K-9 come. What he's referring to is there have been multiple Supreme Court rulings saying you cannot extend a stop in order to get a K-9 to respond to scene. Here's one from 2021, Commonwealth, which I don't know which Commonwealth it was, versus Claiborne, and they are going to point out other cases while they articulate this ruling from the Supreme Court. Says the Supreme Court has held that officers may not extend or prolong stops without reasonable articulable suspicion to conduct further criminal investigation. I want to stop right there because this was, that's what he said. He said they extended the duration of the stop just to get a K-9 on scene. Well, the first line of this ruling says the Supreme Court has held that officers may not extend or prolong a traffic stop without reasonable articulable suspicion. I would say that if officers have gotten multiple reports from the neighborhood that a house is dealing in narcotics, the officers then arrest people leaving that house with narcotics. They developed their own intelligence that this house is being used for narcotics activity. They watch a car pull up to that house, a man walk into the house, stay for a very short period of time, walk back out of the house, get into his car and drive away. I think that would be reasonable, articulable suspicion that you believe criminal activity is afoot. They could have stopped him for an investigative stop. They could have stopped and detained him based on that information alone, but instead they waited for him to commit a traffic infraction because that's a little bit easier to articulate. Why'd you stop him? Well, he rolled up to a stop sign, didn't come to a complete stop, and continued to go. So I started my traffic stop. They can still use their reasonable articulable suspicion later on if they want to. That is stuff that all comes up in court. It's not necessarily something they need to explain at the time of the stop. But let's go further. A stop may last no longer than is necessary to effectuate the initial purpose of the stop. The authority for the seizure ends when the task tied to the traffic infraction is or should have reasonably been completed. So what they say is that if it's easier to describe like a traffic cop. So if you're a traffic cop, you pull over a lot of cars, you write a lot of tickets, your traffic stop should take 5 to 10 minutes. You walk up to the car, you get the license, you go back to your car, run them for warrants real quick, write the ticket, serve them with their ticket, they're gone. If you call for a K-9 the minute that you arrive on the stop, because you don't need probable cause to call for a K-9. So if I pull over a white GMC pickup truck and I want to have a K-9, or I'm curious if a K-9 is available to walk around the car, I might say, hey, I'm at the corner of Stop and Go streets with a white GMC. Is there any K-9 available? K-9 1 answers up. K-9 1, I am en route. I walk up to the car. I say, hey, sir, I stopped you because your wheels touch the double yellow. I'd like your driver's license, proof of insurance, and registration. He gives me his stuff. I talk to him for a brief second. Where you coming from? Where you going? How many children do you have? Whatever the hell it is I want to talk to the guy about. Walk back to my car. When I'm back in my car writing my ticket, K-9 officer arrives. I tell him out the window, hey, would you mind walking around that car for me? K-9 walks around the car. Dog hits on the car. That is the instance where, hey, I've got reasonable suspicion to believe something bad might be in that car. I'm going to search the car. If all of that stuff happened, I go back and I'm writing my ticket and I'm done with my ticket. I can't just sit there with a completed ticket waiting for a K-9 officer to respond to scene. That's what this says. On this particular traffic stop, I've got the video up right here. Remember, these guys are on bicycles, and I've got a little shot right here. There is a police cruiser in the background. This police cruiser is being used to support the bicycle cops. If they have somebody under arrest, they're going to put him in the back of that police cruiser. I know from experience, from being the one that edited this video, there's no computer in that police cruiser. So these officers, when they got this guy's information, they went back to run him in the car and there was no computer. They needed to verify his information in order to write him his traffic citation. What they did is they called for another car with a working computer to respond, and one of the paddy wagons was tied up at the moment, but as soon as they cleared up, they arrived on scene. The officers were on the computer trying to get logged in. There's internet problems. There's a lot of reasons why computers might be going slow, but they were trying to log in, verify his identity, and run him for warrants. They were unable to get it done in a timely manner because of technical issues. While they were doing that, trying to get their ticket written and doing all that stuff, a K-9 officer arrived on scene. So when people say that this was BS, they extended the traffic stop in order to get a dog on scene, there's no evidence of that in the video. And I guess that's the part that I want to explain to people. It's true that the Supreme Court, here I'm going to go right here and pause it. It's true that the Supreme Court has ruled you cannot extend a traffic stop in order to get a dog on scene. There's no evidence in that video that the officers did that. It's also important to remember that this is all stuff that's going to come up actually pre-trial in evidence suppression. So if everything went the way it went and they get the guy is cooperative, he gets out of the car when they tell him to get out of the car, the dog walks around the car and searches, finds evidence of a gun. The guys get in there, they find the gun, they find the drugs, they arrest the guy. He could go to court. They're going to have suppression hearings, and his attorney would argue, listen, this was not a regular traffic stop. These officers had to wait for an extended period of time for a dog to arrive on scene to search my car. If they hadn't extended this traffic stop, they would not have found this evidence. Therefore, it all has to be suppressed. And if his attorney won that argument, the gun, the drugs, and all that stuff would have been suppressed. He would have been issued a traffic citation, and he would have been let go. Now, the prosecuting attorney would get the officers up on the stand, and the officers would say, look, we did not extend this traffic stop any longer than it needed to be. We intended to run him for warrants and everything. This is what we're told we're allowed to do under the Supreme Court rulings. It's just our computer wasn't working, and the people up in records were extremely busy, so it took that long to get our job done. They could then show the video evidence of what they were doing and also show the amount of time that it took. At that point in time, it's up to the judge to decide whether or not they took too long or they extended the stop. It's also important to remember that different judges have different opinions on what is too long. So, you as the viewer, you might watch something and you might say, you know what, that took too long. A judge might look at that and say, no, that's perfectly reasonable. Their explanation is perfectly reasonable. You also might get a judge who likes to side with the criminals, and he might say, no, any traffic stop longer than 8 minutes is too long. Now, if the prosecutor and the city and whoever went and challenged that in court, they would probably win, and the judge's ruling get struck down, but that's besides the point. So let's look at what actually happened. I'm going to turn my sound down so I don't get an echo here, and I don't want to go back too far. Okay, I think I've got it just about right. So at this point in time, the K-9 has arrived on scene. This might be him standing over on the other side of the car. I can't quite remember. But they're telling this guy, and his name is David. They're like, David, we need you to get out of the car. There's a K-9 here. He wants to do a walk around your vehicle. He wants you out of the car. And David is arguing with them. He's like, there's no reason for me to get out of the car. The officer is citing different Supreme Court cases that say, look, this is the reason we're allowed to get you out of the car. He gets incredibly nervous because he knows that he has a gun and drugs in his vehicle. He tries to start the car up so he can take off. They open the door and they pull on him to prevent him from starting the car and driving away. It becomes, at least it gets incredibly dangerous for the officers because he is very close to actually starting that car and driving, and they don't want to be dragged by his vehicle. They don't want to get hurt, so they're going to back off. It's kind of funny because the moment that they back off is the moment he decides to get out of his vehicle and try to run. They then tackle him. What he has done is he has just thrown his case out the window. All of the stuff about the officers waiting too long for a dog to search the car, blah, 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 that's all, none of that matters anymore because they didn't get a search based on the K-9 walking around his vehicle. They get a search based on him running. We can watch that real quick.
We have a supervisor with us. So here's the plan. Set your phones on the desk. I'm asking you. Listen, I'm going to give you. No, don't pull off. Do not pull off. Don't move.
I guess we can watch him tackle him. No, sir. There you go. So there's your sign, dumbass. And to all the people who said that this would all get thrown out because they waited too long for a K-9, blah, blah, blah. You don't know what you're talking about because it wasn't the K-9 search that led to the evidence. And here is some of the evidence that was found. The probable cause in this case is the evidence that they found. The reasonable suspicion is all of his other activities, coming and going from a dope house, getting out of his car and running. These are all of the things that led to the charges. It had nothing to do with the K-9 or extending the search for the K-9. Remember, it's Pennsylvania versus Mims, that when you are stopped by the police, you are detained. If the police want you to step out of your car, they are allowed to order you out of the car. It's completely up to them. So all of the stuff where he was arguing and all that, that is of zero consequence. Here's another thing that I wanted to bring up. Sorry, I'm getting distracted by some of the comments. Oh, this right here. I saw this comment a lot, or a variation of it, and I don't understand where people are coming from, because it's very easy to disprove. It says they should have never charged him for the weapon. I'm glad that it got dropped. That's this comment right here by this Matt Hartman. I don't know where you're getting your information, Matt Hartman, because the weapons charge was not dropped. This is the case. And I've put this in the comments before. It's 2020 CR-4310. David C. Young was charged on August 2nd, 2022, with improper handling of a firearm, possession of drugs, and 2 counts of weapons under disability. Weapons under disability is because he was a convicted felon in possession of a firearm. He has pled not guilty to these offenses, but nothing has been thrown out. I don't know why people make those kind of comments. This is still a very active case, which is kind of funny. As recently as last month, a month ago today almost, it's still being continue. I don't know why it's still being continued, but it is. So the case is still very open. There's still a good chance that he's going to get prosecuted for this. I don't know why people are making these kind of comments, but I suppose at the end of the day, the thing that I want to leave you with is that it is true that a traffic stop cannot be extended purely for the officers to give a K-9 officer time to arrive on scene. It's also true that there might be extenuating circumstances that prolong a traffic stop that are completely legal. I would also say that if you believe police officers are waiting too long for a K-9 to respond to scene, then you should just let that play out, because that is going to work in your benefit in court. If you do something stupid like get out of the vehicle and run, you completely destroy your case, and you completely destroy any possibility that you had of actually beating this charge. So I hope that was informative and informational. Hope you learned something. I'll talk to you guys later.